Hello. Did you know that only approximately 9% of plastics sent to recycling plants are actually recycled? Meanwhile, the other approximately 91% are sent to incinerators and or landfills. This is all according to the Organization of Environmental Cooperation and Development. Hello, my name is Jason Hahn. I am a student at the University of South Florida. Um, I was taught that recycling is very good for the environment growing up. However, now that I'm older and taking classes like environmental science and environmental health science, I now believe that environmental doesn't actually do what it aims to achieve. My three main points about recycling is that it ends up damaging the environment. It's confusing and too difficult to pull off, and at the moment, it is not profitable. Uh, According to a news article published through the Medium by Edmund Thorne in July 2nd, 2025, it is explained that recycling doesn't work because when bins are sent to recycling plants, they get there and they're contaminated, and they had to throw out the entire batch of what would have been recycled and are instead sent to incinerators to be burnt or landfills, which of course pollutes the environment. An illustration of this would be, of course, the common buying like a drink that comes in like a metal can or a plastic bottle. Once we finish those, of course, we will try to recycle them by throwing them in a plastic in a recycling bin. But of course, in America, we utilize something called single stream recycling, which is say that instead of splitting up recycled materials into like a paper bin, a plastic bin, and so on, we just throw it all into one bin. And of course, this bin gets thrown into trucks, which have collected from all of the bins before that. And whatever contaminants were in those bins get mixed up with whatever we try to recycle in our bin. So of course, by the time it gets to the recycling plant, it ends up being contaminated. And no matter who caused the contamination, they had to throw out the entire thing, which of course means they get incinerated. It pollutes the air that we breathe, and or they send it to a landfill where it can pollute and the environment, or more importantly, the water that we drink. Of course, recycling is also not profitable because, according to an article published in the University of Boise, Idaho, called "Recycling: Is It as Good as We Think?" They bring up how it just isn't profitable because we need to spend a lot of money for the tools that we need to separate or separate the recycled materials based on what they're made out of. But also because of what is being recycled or what is being recycled into, is worth much less than what would be made naturally than if it had been manufactured without recycled materials. Some solutions would be more awareness. The University of Berkeley brought this up in an article they called America's Broken Recycling System, where the most important thing is to avoid contamination, because contamination is of course what's causing what would be recycled to be thrown out. But if everyone knows to wash their plastic bottles beforehand, make sure it's clean before it gets sent in, and enough people cooperate, what would be thrown out can be recycled. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, in a section they call Recycling Basics, they talk about how taking in how recycling plants right now fail to keep up with the amount of stuff that are trying to be recycled, because again we use a single stream recycling system in America, meaning they get a bunch of stuff that they have to separate, because of course you can't recycle different things together. That wouldn't make any sense. So a possible solution given by the University of Washington in an article they titled "What is Recycling Contamination?" They brought up how one of the good solutions would be to switch to a multi-stream recycling system, which of course they use in countries like Europe. It's shown to work in Europe. They swapped in the early 2000s, and it has shown that since then their contaminants has gone way down. It's also been backed up by Rubbermaid, which is just a company, but they work very hard to try and advocate for recycling. Multi-stream recycling is, of course, when instead of the plants separating what the different materials are based on what they're made out of, We do that ourselves. There would be like a separate bin for plastic, separate from paper, and then styrofoam and stuff like that, as opposed to us throwing all that stuff into one bin. Of course, an argument could be that like this is too hard, or it just wouldn't be worth it because another person might not do it, and if they do it, your efforts go to waste. But nonetheless, I think the more people that try, the chances of a batch being contaminated and recycling not being thrown out and being sent to the environment where we get all our stuff gets lowered. And of course, that's still better than nothing. Of course, there are other examples as well. Another possible benefit would be that keeping recycling up would be cleaner environments, cleaner air we breathe, cleaner water to drink. But of course, it can also negate climate change. According to the University of Colorado, they said that recycling can help mitigate some of the effects of climate change. Meanwhile, if we don't try and advocate for this, the opposite would happen. What is recycled being burnt, being burnt trash would send smoke into the air. That causes pollution in the air, dirtier air to breathe, or that's harder to breathe, as well as warmer atmosphere, which of course we don't want because we live in Florida. Lastly, I guess the action I would call for would be to just because all the guidelines are different based on where you are in the region, just maybe look at what would be recycled in your area and try to recycle properly. Maybe even advocating for a recycling legislature. Again, the main points are that recycling is very difficult and can be confusing for people who don't do the general education. Dangerous to environment and is not profitable.